What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a spoiler discussion ending explains for Don't Worry Darlings, the newest film from, of course, Olivia Wilde. Just to let you know, this is a spoiler discussion, so there will be full spoilers for this movie. If you haven't seen it or want to see it, please go watch it first and then come back and watch my spoiler discussion, because it might make the movie a little bit easier to understand, at least from what I'm going to try to explain about it. So this movie, Don't Worry Darling, is, of course, Olivia Wilde's sophomoric film effort. Of course, she did Booksmart, and this film follows Alice, who's, of course, played by Florence Pugh, and she lives in a world where she's married to a guy named Jack, who, of course, is played by Harry Styles, and they basically live in this kind of idyllic 60s village or secluded area, which is under the term of the Victory Project, which is this secretive kind of, if you think of, like, I don't know, something in the 60s or something in the 40s that, people would hide away from, that people would work on, let's say Area 51 or something like that. Nobody in this town outside the men really know what's going on. The women they prepare the meals, they take care of the children, they do all their types of things. And as the movie plays along, things start to kind of unravel for Florence Pugh's Alice character, where everything that she sees, including this woman named Margaret, kind of informs her kind of a worry about if this world is really something that is more sinister than it can be. And of course, we have people like Olivia Wilde is, of course, playing a character named Bunny, and she's, the stern one in this group. She's the one kind of the important one, the alpha of the group. And of course, Nick Kroll's in this movie. And then we have Gemma Chan, and of course, Chris Pine. And Chris Pine plays the main founder of the Victory Project. And like I said, it's a movie that starts to unfold a very suspicious, very sinister plan or plot, according to what the character of Alice believes. And on top of everything, of course, as Harry Styles, people love Harry Styles and his music, so that's a lot of people are going to go for that particular reason. And so this movie, I wanted to see, to be fairly honest. I liked the trailer, and then the other stuff started happening, which kind of, unfortunately, kind of unraveled this movie. There was a problem apparently between Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde, and then Harry Styles, and all that kind of stuff was going down. There was a possibility that Chris Pine got spit on by Harry Styles himself. Apparently, Olivia Wilde got served papers during CinemaCon from her ex-husband Jason Sudeikis, and it's been quite a wild ride. It was not very well received, and the movie actually has like a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, as you can tell, is never really a good sign. So going into this movie, as much as I wanted to see it, you have to kind of talk about the elephants in the room. This movie has gotten really bad publicity and not great reviews. And yeah, so for my honest non-spoiler review for this film, I agree with everything they're saying. It's not a very good film. It's a film with some interesting ideas and interesting concepts being presented, but as I was talking my spoiler review, there's some really problematic stuff in this movie that really shows that even though Olivia Wilde's very talented, and it shows the way she works with Matthew Libatique, who is the cinematographer, it really feels like she kind of went past her experience as a director and kind of did what George Clooney did, where he had a couple of really good films, and then he started overreaching his potential, and it starts to show after a while. And then this movie, you can start to tell, and it's problematic in a lot of respects, and it's not problematic on what she's trying to present. It's problematic, it feels very disjointed, and it feels very, unfocused in a lot of respects. And I give a lot of credit to Olivia Wilde for trying. I just feel like, like I said, with George Clooney and with some other directors that have worked, sometimes you have to give yourself the experience and, not jump into the deep end so quickly. And that's exactly what's happening here. And it just completely unravels so quickly in this movie. And just, you're starting to wonder if, like, is this movie like a joke? Is it trying to, particular point of view that is like not focused at all? I don't know what happened, but it just doesn't feel like a really well put together film, and I definitely can see why people just didn't like this film. And it's such a shame, because like I said, the whole idea of like the mystery of why this world is, why Florence Pugh is having the situation, what is going on with Margaret, what is going on with this town, even from the trailer, there's something really off about this world. And I guess I really expected more, to be fairly honest. So that's kind of where I'll leave it for my non-spoiler review, because I do want to not make this video like 45 minutes long, so I'm going to end it there. So if you haven't seen the movie, at least I give you like a non-spoiler review. Like I said, there are people that really enjoyed this movie that I know that really liked it, but I didn't really care for it. So there you go. That's my non-spoiler take. And like I said, if you want to hear about the spoiler stuff, let's get ready to talk about that now. So yeah, to talk spoilers, like I said, I was really looking forward to this film. It looked like it had a lot of potential from the trailers. The trailers really sold this as something I think was a little bit different than what we ended up getting, because I feel like this movie kind of cheats a little bit, to be fairly honest. And I was gonna get like really angry about this film because it did really make me mad, but I want to be kind of thinking about it, kind of putting out my thoughts in a more civil manner in a lot of respects, because I do like Olivia Wilde as a director and actress. I think she's very talented, but this movie it has an identity crisis. It has an unfocused ability to try to tell a story that really tries to do too much. Like I said, it's going into the deep end when it's only her sophomore film as a director, I still think she's going to have a very good career as a director, but I think she's reaching really far. And it's because of how popular Booksmart was and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with going like small to big, but when you see something like, what Colin Trevorrow did when he went from Safety Not Guaranteed straight into Jurassic World, I mean, this is a much smaller project, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this. And so, like I said, it's set in this like community. It's part of this thing called the Victory Project. I actually thought of it as like the thing with Hank Scorpio and The Simpsons. Is that like that type of world where everything seems on the surface levels very cool and very friendly and comfy. This is a world where everybody lives in the 60s style house. The women prepare food and take care of the kids, and the husbands go off to work and work on whatever secret project because they're part of this community. But as we start seeing, there is something sinister underneath, and that sinister stuff is what is trying to placate what this movie will end up portraying near the end, because Florence Pugh's Alice character seems fine at the beginning, but what's really weird and kind of off is there's no real setup to them being in this town. Feels like they've been there for quite a while. There's never like, them arriving, for instance. It feels a lot like The Island, where, the Michael Bay movie, where they're just kind of there and there's no real rhyme or logic or reason. It just feels like you're jumping into a middle of a story of this town or whatever. And as the movie plays along, we're introduced to this character named Margaret, who is the individual, this woman who's kind of lost her sanity, and she lost her kid in the desert. The kid's apparently dead. The people took it or whatever. The I don't know, the security guards or whatever. And it starts to kind of it starts to kind of show that, the Alice's character really starts to become uncomfortable. She's been having nightmares. She feels fine at first, but she's really just kind of, there's something about this world that she feels uneasy with. She sees like, dancing women from like the 30s and stuff like that, which is really weird. And, she sees like different kind of what I would call the Fight Club effect, where there's like really quick shots that are inserted into the movie, where, for instance, when they're at the party or they're at the house of, I think, Frank, who is the Chris Pine character, there's a shot where Margaret is sitting there, she's arguing with her husband, and they close the blinds on, of course, Alice's character, and you see like a quick shot of Margaret, and there's something kind of truly there. But you also see the shots of like Alice in like a different location with, her husband Jack, Harry Styles' character, and he has like longer hair. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you just start to see how this world just feels so off. It feels very Stepford wise in its kind of scenario. I was thinking, unfortunately, I did have this kind of spoiled for me a little bit, that someone said this was taking place in the present, but I didn't really kind of understand. I didn't understand what they were going for. But like I said, like all the world and how idyllic it is, and just how everything seems to be on a schedule, and how there are points in this movie where the character of Alice seems to jump forward in time, and just there's pieces that are missing there, and it becomes a story about like, is she crazy? Is she like dreaming this stuff? Is this like, what is going on? And for instance, like I said, Margaret kills herself, and she's being accused of like going crazy, and then she gets like mad at people, and it just, one point she sees a plane in the sky, and of course it makes her like stay on the trolley, which is like where they go to like buy food and stuff like that. She gets off the trolley, she runs to this building, which is the Victory Project headquarters. She touches the glass on the big dome building, And basically she wakes up and her husband is taking care of her and stuff like that. And there's a lot of that stuff going on in this movie that really kind of unfocuses the story. I really felt like I'm sitting here watching this movie, and I'm sitting here watching her character start to like unravel as she starts to kind of question her reality and then question the world around her. And she thinks that, you know, Frank or whatever his name is, like the Chris Pine character, is just, he's doing something really sinister. And as we find out, it is really sinister. But it just, there's like the point where, you know, they're like Jack and Alice, where they have sex at Frank's place, and Frank just kind of appears, and the way she's like so like transfixed by him, but so weird, off-put and stuff like that. And you know, on top of that, there's like there's a dinner scene where, you know, after everything's kind of started to kind of unravel for Alice, where she confronts everyone about like, how did they get here, why are they here, what exactly is going on. And she comes to the conclusion that everybody has the same story about how they met, where they are from, how they live. And it becomes kind of like, is this really a Stepford Wives situation, or is this like a control? Because there's a lot of talk about control, like the video footage, you know, the talking Frank talks throughout the movie, where he's talking through the TV, and how they're, you know, it's kind of a Truman Show situation where you sit there and watch it and you're going, so Frank is like Job or whatever his name is, that Harris character, where he's trying to keep them there. But why is he trying to keep them there? There's a point where they're at a party, like this very like jazzy 1900s style party, and a lot of the stuff going on. You can kind of see Jack's character really kind of, you see Alice, who's like really, it's really strange at how she's acting. And the Bunny character, the Olivia Wilde character, is trying to calm her down, but Jack is like, he doesn't feel entirely comfortable with what he's doing. He gets promoted and stuff like that. But this leads to her having a breakdown, and Jack's character has her committed to be given electric shock therapy. And this is where we kind of find out a little bit more about the story, and we find out, as I said earlier, because it was a little spoiled for me, in essence, this world, it really is in the modern times. It's in today's society, because we finally see Alice and Jack in the real world. Jack is a guy who's lost his job. He just doesn't really have any life. He's found out about this thing called the Victory Project, which is, it seems like a cult, I guess you could say, but we're not entirely sure what it is. Alice works actually as a medical profession. She works in the hospital. She's working like 30-hour weeks. They have no relationship. They have no drive, no love. And it really shows by she has to work 30 hours, go home, sleep for 6 hours, and go back to work. But like I said, she's given electric shock therapy. And on top of everything, there's this doctor in the movie, and he's trying to give her medicine to keep her sedated so that she just kind of goes in the world. Once she's given electric shock therapy, she goes back, and it's very similar to kind of the story of the Truman Show, where it starts out kind of idyllic, and it feels very at home. But as the movie moves along, the story starts to unravel for Truman, as it does here Alice, but it's a completely different scenario. But it feels like very much a control type situation. That's what this movie's about. It's not only about control, but it's also about, you know, how women are kind of seen as lower class to the men who are kind of, you know, moving through society in a much better pace than the women. And you kind of find out a little bit later on, which sure, every man in apparently a movie today seems to be the bad guy, but I mean, what is what it is. But I have to admit, for the most part, I was intrigued. I was like, where's the story going to go? This is very much, it feels very Twilight Zone-ish in a lot of respects. It feels like something, you know, maybe we'll see in a Rod Serling project or something like that. Once she comes back home, she's making dinner for Jack's character. Jack has come home from his day. And this is when the big reveal happens. And that big reveal, of course, is she starts to have like a breakdown, visions start to happen, and we find out that the Victory Project is the Matrix. Yeah, there you go. It's the worst reveal I've seen in quite a while. It actually takes away from this really interesting premise, which actually wasn't too bad. I was really intrigued, for the most part. But basically, Jack's character got involved with this, this project, Victory Project, to make money because they're broke and they don't ever get to spend time with each other. And he basically enslaves, for the most part, enslaves Alice, or I don't know what happens. That's the main problem with this movie, is it's not real focused on like what exactly exactly this is happening, why it's happening, and the thrust of like what exactly happened to get to this point. We just see her in bed. She has this device on her face, and it's actually keeping her under bay and in this virtual reality world, which is, like I said, the Victory Project. It's basically doing like Ready Player One, but in a much more sinister tone. And Jack he's basically keeping her hostage, and she's not liking this. And he's like, I did it because we wanted to be together. This is, better for everyone. And of course, he tries to like strangle her, or tries to like bear hug her and kill her, and then of course hit her over the head with a glass and is killed, of course, because you got to kill Harry Styles in a movie, I guess. And it basically leads to kind of an opening for her to leave. Of course, Bunny comes over and explains she knows what's going on, and she chose this life, but if they, now that Jack's killed and stuff like that, she has to escape or they will kill her in like the real life, because she killed her husband, because apparently the women have no control in this movie, which I understand where Olivia Wilde's going with this about women and the world that we live in, stuff like that. The whole idea is very much prevalent, just how her view of the world works, and I do agree with her in some of the things she's saying. But she of course goes on the run. She ends up being chased by the doctor and the security people, and she makes it right to where she was earlier with the big domed area and stuff like that, and the security guards are coming after her, and she is, I don't know if it's in her mind or it's like a CG program or something like that. Harry Styles wraps himself around and says, "You don't want to leave. I love you. You should stay." And then of course she jumps to the mirror. And this is the thing that really disappointed me, is it goes to black, but we also see quick shots of her dancing around her apartment. And it basically does like the Christopher Nolan Inception or Open Your Eyes or Vanilla Sky, where you're not really given much information on what exactly happens to her next. It just ends. Don't Worry Darling appears, and that's the end of the movie, and it plays the credits. And I don't like these endings anymore, to be fairly honest. I know they're supposed to be kind of thought-provoking and making you go, what do you think happened? Do you think she survived? Do you think they stopped her? Do you think she's dead now? Like, what exactly... I mean, she could have been dead from the point when she got the electric shock therapy. Maybe they, like, lobotomized her or something like that. But it just... I don't know. I feel like Olivia Wilde's better than this as a director, and this feels such a cop-out to just end the movie like you don't know what you want out of the movie. I mean, Inception did that, but I think it's a much more interesting concept. And this is the same problem I have with Vanilla Sky, where it wants you to think one of two ways, but it doesn't really give you enough to feel that way. It's like, oh, we're going to say this, this, and this, but then we're going to kind of leave it open-ended for you to kind of be thought-provoked. And I don't feel that's good storytelling. I think this whole movie has that kind of problem where it's telling this interesting idea, but the story is not being presented very well. There's thoughts and ideas and presentations and concepts being presented, but they're not fully realized. It feels like we're moving so quickly from one piece to one piece to one piece that when you think about going back to it, it actually starts to unfold upon itself. It starts to unravel upon itself, and that to me is just it's a sign of just really kind of poor story making, storytelling, structure, and stuff like that. And I'm not saying like I can make anything better, because I probably couldn't. But when you get down to brass tacks and stuff like that, it's just there is so much potential there. And like I said, Florence Pugh is really good in the movie, but everybody else feels like a caricature, feels very flat. Of course, Chris Pine's character is killed by Gemma Chan's character, and she's like, oh, now it's my turn, and stuff like that. And there's never really payoff there. And just, the Victory Project apparently is a computer program to control people and doing things. And, there's a lot of interesting ideas that are never entirely paid off. And I know people really enjoy this movie and like the idea. But when you have stuff like The Matrix, when you have stuff like The Truman Show, which actually does the same thing, you're not really sure. Even though it's going to be very difficult for Truman when he leaves, you still are wondering what's going to happen next. Here, I didn't really care. I really didn't. Once that happened, I'm like, all right, Olivia Wilde is just going to the well of something where she's trying to be thought-provoking and just doesn't really particularly do it very well. So... in the end, it's a very disappointing movie. It's not the worst of the year, but it's a movie that, really has a lot of potential. It just didn't deliver on that potential. So it is what it is, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, everybody in this movie tries. Some of the characters are fun, but I think in the end, Florence Pugh is the only one that gives an interesting performance. And, she has to deal with a lot of, like, terrible script writing and terrible storytelling, and I can see why she's having difficulty promoting this film, because not only is she dealing with like the behind the scenes stuff that she kind of probably knew that this movie was heading in a pretty poor direction. So, but with that said, that is my spoiler discussion ending explains for Don't Worry Darling. Maybe, hopefully, Olivia Wilde's third film will be much, much better. But for the time being, this is definitely a September movie. It definitely feels like a September movie, and definitely kind of falls in the pitfalls and prats of that particular month of the type of movie. So anyways, with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take and spoiler discussion of Don't Worry Darling, the new Olivia Wilde film. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What did you think overall of the film? Do you have anything to add to the spoiler discussion? Let me know. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like the video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.